See, I think for some of us, we must run aground first. Because for some of us, the problems in our life, the storms in our life, haven't been caused by outside sources, and yet we often play the victim card. We blame someone else for the problems in our life, but for some of us, not everyone, it's actually our own fault. It's our own fault, and God is trying to run us aground so that we would wake up and that we would quit clinging to the things that we think are giving us hope, and that we would cling to God. Have you ever seen the alcoholic who blames their alcoholism on everyone else? Well, I'm an alcoholic because of my dad. He abused me and he was mean to me. Well, that's not fair that he did that. However, you need to be run aground and you need to quit clinging to this that's causing pain in your life. And so for some of us, God's trying to break us of the victim mentality, and he's trying to get us to take ownership and responsibility of some of the things in our life. Some of us, we cling to our portfolio and we cling to our finances, and that's our hope. My business is my hope, and God, you're a side note, and God's going, really? And he's shaking us. And he's shaking of us of our hope that we would hope in something lasting. It's not that finances are bad, it's just that they are not eternal, they are temporal, and God wants us to hope in the good things and the eternal things. See, our idea of good is not always the same as God's idea of good. And so some of us, he's running us aground to wake us up. But that's not always the case. Some of us, life is just throwing us a curveball. And so in verse 27 through 32, we see that the sailors don't really take heed to Paul. They're not like, yeah, that doesn't give me much hope. And as the storms are beating on them day in and day out, the sailors get this really good idea. They're like, hey, we're going to lower the lifeboat down, and we're going to check the side of the ship with it. We're just going to kind of cruise around to make sure, nothing's broken. But what they really intend to do is lower the lifeboat down, cut the ropes, and take off and go, see you, suckers, and leave them with the ship with no expertise on how to do it, and the sailors are going to try to save themselves. Well, seeing this, the soldiers on board, the land soldiers, not the Navy soldiers, cut the ropes to the lifeboat, which sounded smart at the time. Sometimes our solutions that we come up with sound really smart at the time. I know, I'll buy lottery tickets and that'll get me out of debt, right? Sometimes our solutions aren't the best. And so 14 days they've been in this storm. And Paul stands up again 11 days after trying to encourage them before. And we find him saying this in verse 35. It says, as the day was about to dawn, Paul urged them to take some food, saying, I'm actually at 33. Today is the 14th day that you have continued in suspense and without food, having taken nothing. Therefore, I urge you to take some food. It will give you strength, for not a hair will perish on any head of yours. And when he had said these things, he took bread, and giving thanks to God in the presence of all, he broke it and he began to eat. Then they were encouraged, and they ate some food. How is Paul giving thanks at this point? I mean, at this point you're going, Paul, what are you giving thanks for? Thanks for what? Thanks for 14 days without any cargo, without any way of really managing the ship because you've thrown everything overboard? 14 days of storms, 14 days of not being able to see the stars nor the sun and even be able to tell which direction you should go? What are you giving thanks for? What in the world have you to thank God for? Yet, look, verse 36, then they were encouraged. Meaning finally, at this point, they had eventually actually been encouraged by Paul. See, we make this mistake in the church thinking that the world is going to be impressed by us when we accrue for ourselves wealth and cars and a good life and an easy life, and then we thank God for it, which we should, which is okay, but we think that that's what the world is going to be impressed by. I praise Jesus because I have a Bentley. I tithe to Jesus because he'll make me rich. And you think the world is impressed by that? I mean, even the deepest of atheists would be like, all right, I'll follow that God who makes me rich. But they are not impressed by that. Anyone can thank a God who showers them with riches. The world is impressed when every treasure is ripped from our hands, when every hope is removed from the external part of our lives, and yet we still cling to the hope that is in Jesus. Then the world goes, that must be some hope. That must be something I don't have. What is that? See, God is not some piñata that we beat goodies out of with prayer. Shower me with the blessings because he is my God. Ole, right? You want to see that again? Prayer is not some mantra which we just remove bad karma with all the time. He's not some blessing vending machine that we put money in and he just pours it out. The world is not impressed when they see us pursuing God and getting earthly gain. They are impressed when they see us clinging to God when we should let go. See, there's a man by the name of Horatio Spafford, and he wrote a hymn. He wrote a famous hymn called "It Is Well With My Soul." And the hymn says, "It's well with my soul." And he was a successful lawyer in Chicago, and he was heavily invested in real estate. Things were going well, so shouldn't he have written "It Is Well With My Soul"? Shouldn't he have written that? He hadn't yet, though. But he should have, right? It was well. Things were going great. He had 4 lovely daughters, a wonderful wife. Things were well. Well, in 1871, the Great Chicago Fire destroyed everything almost that he owned in the real estate market. And so, rightly, as anyone would, he goes, I think we need a vacation. And so he and his family go, yeah, let's vacation to Europe. And it just so happened at that time that one of his friends, D.L. Moody, who was a famous preacher at that time, was preaching in England. And so they went, we'll go to England on vacation, we'll watch him preach, and then we'll enjoy the rest of our vacation in England. And needing to finish up some business, he sent his wife and his 4 lovely daughters on ahead. And his wife, whose name was Anna, his daughters, Annie, Margaret Lee, Bessie, Tanetta, lovely little daughters. They headed off while he stayed and finished up business. Well, a few days later, Horatio Spafford received a telegram. And it started out simply this. It was from his wife, and it read, "Saved alone." Well, what had happened is on the way over, an iron shipping vessel had struck the cruiser that his family was on. And the cruiser had just sunk, and 226 people died, including his 4 daughters. And only his wife survived. And so Horatio got on the ship that he had originally intended to get on to meet them there, headed over to meet his wife and that they could bereave together. And on the way over, sailing on that ship, as he passed over the same waters which his family perished in, he wrote the hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul." And the first verse read, "When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll." And if anyone knew sorrows that rolled like sea billows, wasn't it him? He said, "Whatever my lot, God, thou hast taught me to say, it is well. It is well with my soul." Well, anyone can read this verse knowing that he's writing it over the deep sea grave of his daughters. And they will scream to Horatio. They will go, "It is not well. You are insane. It is not well. Are you crazy? Are you in denial? It is not well. You are crazy." Well, Horatio, he was like Jesus. Do you not know that people said the same thing to Jesus? "You are crazy." Even Peter looked at Jesus and said, "You're nuts. You will not go to the cross. I will forbid you to do it." And don't you know that even when Jesus was on the cross, they mocked him and made fun of him, and they called him crazy? That he was crucified in between 2 thieves, and one thief even had the gall to be like, "Look at you on a cross. Who's this guy?" While he's hanging there, and he had the gall to mock him and go, "You are nuts, Jesus of Nazareth." But the other thief, like Horatio, understood. He understood the end game that we are all about. And he looked over at Jesus on his own cross, and he said, Lord, remember me in paradise. And Jesus said, I will. And Horatio, like that thief, didn't just write the first verse, but he wrote the last verse. And the last verse goes, and Lord, haste the day, hurry the day, when my faith shall be sight, when I don't have to hope, but I can see it. When the clouds of this world are rolled back like a scroll, the trump shall resound, and Lord, you shall descend. And then it will be well with my soul. It's what makes me sick about today's culture in the church is we are always asking, Lord, what are you doing for me? Lord, what are you doing for me? But Horatio, he's crying out in this verse, or in this hymn, he's crying, Lord, look at what you've done for me. Yes, my daughters have perished, but look at what you've done for me. There is a day when you are coming, when all this pain is going to be wiped away, and when there will be hope, and there will be peace, and there will be healing. See, guys, in Jesus, there may be suffering now, but there is victory eventually. The hope we are clinging to is not the hope around us, but the hope of the eternal to come. So the one who can't find a job, the one of us out here who can't find a job, the many of us, keep searching. People are going to tell you you're crazy. They're going to go, you're nuts. There's no jobs out there. And you're going to go, you know what? I'm not God. I don't decide where there is and isn't work. And just keep searching. To the one whose marriage is a flop, die rescuing it. And people will tell you you're crazy. He's a lazy slob. She's an unfaithful woman. And you go, you know what? I was adulterous and unfaithful to Jesus, yet that never stopped him from pursuing me and saving me and bringing me back in. That never stopped him from restoring relationship to me. So far be it from me to give up on another. To the one with the straying child, don't give up. Kick them out. Kick them out. Don't enable them. But don't give up. And they'll tell you, you're crazy. Your kid is a loser. And you say, have you not heard? God is father to the prodigal. God saves the lost child. He calls him back. I have hope that God can be father to my prodigal. To the one with chronic illness, keep your inner strength and your courage. People will tell you you're nuts. Look how sick you are. How did your God let you go through this? And you just say back to them, my God will heal me, whether in this life or in the next. My God will heal me. And if it is in the next, then you tell them, then I will cling to him, because right now it is a light and momentary affliction that I'm going through compared to what is to come when he rolls back the heavens like a scroll and he calls us up and he heals us all and removes all pain and sorrow. You tell them this is nothing compared to what is to come, to the paradise that awaits us. Worship team, Jared, Susie, come on. See, people are not interested in our get-rich-quick schemes or our fly-by-the-night profits for a profit. Roll that one out. They're not interested in that. Why do you guys think there's so many self-help books in the bookstore? Go to the bookstore and you will see that it is the largest category. It's becoming the largest category. The self-help diet, the self-help this, the self-help that. Any category now has self-help books. History, I bet you go to the history section, you can find self-help books. Why do you think there's so many of them? Because none of them work, so they go find the next one hoping that one works, and they go to the next one hoping that one works. If one of them worked, they'd only write one, and then everyone else would write study guides on the one that worked. See, people in our culture, they're sick of cheesy and empty promises. And they're sick of hearing them from the church.